Good morning. As we start, we recognize that it's not always possible to catch all of the details of these sessions. So we've provided a link to our presentation here, and you'll see the URL at the footer of the next few slides. On behalf of my co-presenters, welcome to this session on post-cancellation journal collections. My name is Pat Lieneman, and I'm joined by two of my colleagues from Minnesota State University, Mankato, Annalise Luck and Nat Gustafson Sundell. Our institution is a regional public access university with about 14,000 full-year equivalent students. We are located in south central Minnesota, depicted by the yellow blob on the map there, where the Minnesota River alters course to the northeast, heading towards Minneapolis-St. Paul and the Mississippi River. We are an Alma Management Systems user, and for better or worse, much of our work is mediated through Alma and Primo. Although the detailed information we will provide is based on this system, the concepts and applications will be potentially useful to anyone engaged in this kind of work, regardless of the library system utilized. Today, we will be talking about our ongoing project to create post-cancellation access collections and how we use them to support core library functions, including collection development and instruction. I will start with an overview on PCA collections. Annalise will continue with a how-to demonstration to create these collections. And then finally, Nat will review several of the applications. A quick comment on vocabulary. There are many similar terms for this type of right: post-cancellation access, post-termination access, perpetual access, etc. I think our group will mostly be referring to these as PCA rights. At our campus, we roughly view these as equivalent. There might be some nuances that you know of, but if we just kind of use these interchangeably. So don't let that throw you off if you use different terms at your institution, or maybe you have a fuller understanding of some of these issues than I do. Perpetual access coverage is different from current coverage in most cases. So it's important to be able to differentiate the two when making decisions, and also to be able to quickly act on that difference when you need to. So just a reminder of how it usually works. The current access collection is this IRIS-scribed material plus all the additional back content thrown in by the vendor. Often this will go back to like 1996 when a lot of information was digitized, I believe. They just kind of throw that in as a bonus when you license material from them. The perpetual access content, however, is solely the materials that we licensed as part of our collection development process. You know, this was a positive decision of us, like we want to add these materials. They are also negotiated rights, so not every license provides these. So just it's kind of a specific instance. They're different. Annalise will cover the whole Alma process in more detail next. But generally what we're doing here is that, you know, a license gets negotiated at our institution, it gets handed off to me at that point, and I interpret it and input some information into Alma. So right away, we have to read that license and identify which materials have PCA rights included. And then the next step for us is obtaining an entitlement list from those vendors. Sometimes within the license, they're identified, but those PDFs are really hard to work with and build any type of Alma collection off of that. So we really do value some type of, Excel or other similar file from a vendor to build these licenses. And then finally, we create and activate two different collections. The current package access collection is everything that's being made available to us during this licensed period. And then the other collection is the PCA rights collection, which are just those permanently licensed materials when provided for. There are multiple benefits to setting up both of these collections in Alma. The first one is you maintain collection awareness. Just knowing about the existence of PCA rights isn't enough to be useful. It's kind of like knowing that your job offers some really great fringe benefits, but if you don't visit the HR website to see what they are, you're probably going to miss out, or maybe your employment's ending and you are scrambling to take advantage of it in the last few days of that they're available, or that you can take action on it. It's also really nice having these two collections as a way to identify long-term resources. So as the movement around open educational resources, OER, hopefully grows and more instructors adopt these practices, the library is in a really great position to be part of this work. So the teaching faculty say they want to make their own course reserve packet, like an electronic course reserve packet. They'll put it on D2L or put some links on D2L. The teaching faculty, or if your institution is like mine, a librarian assisting through some type of liaison work, would be able to confidently select or suggest course readings that will be provided long-term at our library by choosing materials that come from PCA rights collections. This would potentially lessen stress for students and teaching faculty when, like, oh, this link's not working, it's giving me an error, it says, pay $39.95 for this journal article or whatever. If a material is no longer licensed by our library. So if you choose that PCA rights collection, it's just a lot more stable. It's less work for the teaching faculty to have to review all the links before their class starts. They don't have to worry about updating their syllabus. They could just keep teaching the course if that's what they need to do. There are also workflow benefits. So if you're going to utilize these PCA collections in your institution, it's really handy, especially if a license is sunsetting or just straight up being canceled, which often happens at a bad time for many of us, either in the middle of summer, July 1st, when we're on vacation or just not working in the library, or in between semesters, maybe it's a January 1st renewal. That's a short time frame in between fall and spring semester to try to do any work. So we really see a benefit to creating these collections at the beginning of a life cycle. We license something, we build this collection right away. And then there's just a minor amount of ongoing management needed to keep this project going. And then having these collections established is really useful because they contribute to some of our reports, our holding analysis that we were able to do. It's really important that we're able to analyze our collection as a whole and make decisions based on hard data. And this is something that Nat will cover a little bit more later. So, maybe you don't work with PCA or licenses a lot. You're just kind of familiar with what this might look like. They come in many different forms. I just wanted to provide a couple different examples and how we track them within ALMA. So, when I read a license right away, I'm looking, are there perpetual access rights provided? And this first one's just a binary yes or no. If there are rights, we like to copy and paste straight from a license and just have it there. It's really easy to kind of just summarize what's provided for when we have to look at a license. Sometimes licenses technically provide some type of PCA rights. They say they'll offer to give you a CD-ROM or DVD or whatever that has all this content on it. However, we have really no way to host that data. We have no way to index that. It's not discoverable very easily. So those rights, they're less actionable for us. What we do really value is when the materials are able to be continued to be provided through a vendor platform. Often there's a minimal hosting fee involved, but it's a lot more user-friendly. Our users really might not even realize something's different once a license ends. Just a couple more examples. These rights they range from everything from just a simple sentence to more complex paragraphs and clauses and that sort of thing. So just wanted to give an example there. And then once again, doing the front work of maintaining these PCA collections is really worthwhile because there's plenty to do when a license ends or a license is canceled. Maybe it's a very heavily science-focused database. Well, whoever the library liaison is, they're going to have to go and have some tough talks, tough decisions, tough conversations with some of these departments. So saying why we had to do it, why we didn't see any other choice, that sort of thing. So there's plenty of work to do. So you want to get these prepared right away. It also really makes it pretty simple to have ALMA reflect any type of cancellations or changes in your license. So say our institution decided to end the Science Direct collection at the end of 2023. All we would do is cap the end date for this PCA rights collection here, put the end date of 2023, and then we can just delete that Freedom collection, that overall current collection, and just move on with our day. So thank you for joining us this morning. Up next, our colleague Annalise will talk a little bit more about the actual mechanics of this project and provide some more details. Thank you.
Let's discuss process and procedure. First and foremost, it's important to recognize that this process can differ based on your library management system and library needs. For the sake of clarity, I want to be clear that this is how we do this process as an institution that uses ALMA as our LMS. To start, I recommend pulling an entitlement report from the vendor that you are working with. We will typically pull these reports from our administration accounts, but do know you can always reach out to the vendor directly. Once you obtain this list, take some time to familiarize yourself with the report. Some vendors will include open access titles, and it's usually a good idea to filter those out so they do not end up in your PCA collection. If you are working with a large amount of titles, I recommend setting up a list you can upload into ALMA using the blank template found on Ex Libris's website. You can find a link to this template through the Manage Electronic Resources documentation here. If you are working with a small amount of titles, you may wish to activate the titles individually. We usually work with a large amount of titles and therefore choose to use the Portfolio Uploader feature. You can see an example of what that file could look like here. In this case, I have the ISSN along with the journal title and coverage. Notice columns D through L are hidden. Just so you're aware, those fields, I left them blank. There are many ways you could approach this process. I have done this process a few different ways myself, but this is the main way I have done it. To start, we are going to create a local collection. Under the Resources menu and under Create Inventory, go ahead and click on Add Local Electronic Collection. ALMA will walk you through the local collection setup wizard. At minimum, fill out the public name and public name override fields with the same name. The override field is particularly important for later when we link this collection to the community zone. If you do not fill out the public name override field, the local collection's name will change to the name of the community zone collection that you link this to later. Once you have this first page filled out, go ahead and click Save and Continue. You will now be on the Electronic Service Editor page. On the Activation tab, leave the service activation status as not available for now. This will help ensure that the collection won't show up in your discovery layer until it is ready for access. Be sure to take the time to adjust any other settings in the collection as needed for your library's needs. For example, you may wish to visit the Linking tab to enable and select your proxy. Next, go to the Portfolios tab and click on Load Portfolios. The initial setup we've done with the entitlement list will now be useful. You should now be on the Activation Wizard page for file uploads. At this point in the setup of a PCA collection, the loading policy does not make much of a difference. It will, however, make a difference once the collection is associated with the community zone. We follow Ex Libris's documentation for file uploads. In most cases, you will want to have Complete selected, as this will work on linking your titles to the community zone after the collection has been properly associated. Be sure to have Add Local Portfolio selected under Action. I will always leave Validate Online selected under Select Validation Policy, as this will help provide clarity if any of the titles in the file are not uploaded. I want to take a second to point out that you can now upload KBART files into ALMA. I won't go into that process here, but please know you can find documentation about how to do this on Ex Libris's website if you're curious. On the next step of the Activation Wizard, ALMA will let you know what is going to happen with the information you've provided for upload. In this case, we can see ALMA is going to create all 7 portfolios from the information provided in the Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes you'll find that ALMA won't create a portfolio for a title in your Excel document for some various reason. If this happens to you, you'll see differing numbers. This is where downloading the Excel file to view information and warnings is helpful. Even if you get differing numbers, you will still want to upload the file and use the information and downloads file to manually add any problem titles to your collection. Once you've verified everything looks as good as it will be, go ahead and click Load. Alma will let you know with a pop-up that the activation job has been submitted. Once the activation job has finished loading, you will be notified through email. Once you refresh the electronic service editor, you will see a list of all the portfolios you added. Notice that all titles are institution zone records at this time. At this point, go ahead and click on Save. After clicking Save, you will now be brought to the electronic collection editor. The electronic collection editor is another area where you'll need to adjust settings based on your library needs. We usually take the opportunity to adjust proxy settings. On the General tab in this section, you may find it useful to mark the access type as perpetual. This can be a helpful indication later on if you run reports. Go ahead and click Save. Next, take the time to identify a collection from the community zone that you can link your newly created local electronic collection to. The benefit of doing this is for the CZ to manage the linking for you and to generally make your life easier. Since identifying ideal collections can be tricky, I wanted to take the opportunity to provide some tips and tricks for identifying an ideal collection. Be sure the collection's interface name matches the vendor you are working with. Stay away from collections that were designed for specific packages, as you want a collection that is all-encompassing of a vendor's provided content. For example, MIT Press Journal's Arts and Humanities collection will not include other journals that fall outside of the Arts and Humanities subject area. Ideal collections sometimes include words such as all or complete. Sometimes vendors simply use their vendor name and the words journals or books. With the collection we are working with today, we have MIT Press Journals. Some vendors will even split book and journal content into separate collections. This is okay, but be sure you're working with the desired collection. Finally, be sure you choose a collection that has portfolios in it, as this is what your local electronic collection will utilize for access. Be sure to write this collection name down for later. Now that we've taken the time to identify a collection from the community zone, we are ready to link the local electronic collection. Under the ellipsis of your local electronic collection, go ahead and select Link to Community. Under the Community Information section, go ahead and click on Select from a list. In the pop-up, type the name of the collection you've identified earlier in the search box. Through the list of results, find the collection and click on it in order to select it. Under Bibliographic Records Configuration, be sure you have Yes selected. I recognize ISSNs are not always an ideal match point, but this is what Ex Libris uses to make the connection from the file you've uploaded earlier to the community zone. The records in the CZ are pretty inclusive of a title's ISSNs, and therefore there is a high chance the appropriate connections will be made in the linking process. Once you have everything set up, go ahead and click on Link. After clicking Link, you will get the pop-up that you see in the upper right-hand corner. This pop-up is simply letting you know what to expect. Go ahead and read through this pop-up and click Confirm. You will then see another pop-up letting you know that you've successfully submitted a linking job. This process will take a little bit of time, but you should receive an email once the process is complete. On the Portfolio tabs in the Electronic Service Editor, you'll notice the Institution Zone symbol has changed to the Community Zone symbol. You may need to refresh this page after the linking job has completed in order to see this. Take this time to look for any titles that retain the Institution Zone symbol. Manually investigate those titles, and by investigating, I mean you'll likely have to manually activate them from the community zone. When a title doesn't connect, it either doesn't exist in the CZ or the CZ record does not have the ISSN you entered in the file for upload. Go ahead and activate any missed titles from the CZ and remove the local portfolio. Be sure the coverage from those titles reflects your PCA coverage by editing the portfolio if necessary. For any titles that have to remain local, be sure you add an access URL in the portfolio for your patrons. Finally, you will need to remember to change the status of your new PCA rights collection to available. Go to the Activation tab and select Available. Go ahead and click Save. These titles will now be available to your patrons through your discovery layer.
Thanks, Annalise, for that great description how to set up PCA collections. Now I'll discuss how we use PCA collections for holdings analysis. At MNSU, our PCA collections provide rich data for holdings analysis, which I'll demonstrate briefly. Our approach for holdings analysis is based on the foundational work of Evan Rush here at MNSU. Holdings analysis is one aspect of collection analysis. Generally speaking, we think of collection analysis data and measures in terms of 4 categories. The first is supply, which includes holdings analysis. Second is quality, which includes journal rankings and citation-based metrics. Third is usage, which includes numerous measures such as counter item requests, link resolver clicked services, ILL requests, and print serials browses. And finally, the fourth is cost. In our library, collection analysis has at least 4 areas of application. These include 1. Collection assessment or decision-making about the collections, 2. Collection evaluation, for example, to support accreditation and program review, 3. Collection administration, such as discovery optimization, and 4. Collection outreach, which includes reports to campus departments and administrators demonstrating the library's value. Today I'll show you 3 reports very quickly to highlight how these deploy holdings analysis, especially to draw attention to the value provided by PCA collections. The Collection Review or CR report is an annual report to inform collection assessment. The Index Comparison was a custom report requested by an instruction librarian. Finally, the Collections Power BI or CPBI is an online interactive report we update annually. Although the CPBI was built primarily for collection outreach and evaluation, it's helpful across all the collection analysis areas of application. The CR report includes several holdings analysis categories, aside from providing counts of ER providers, OA venues, and so on. We provide coverage dates for various categories of journal venues. In this version, you can see we provide the coverage years for subscriptions specifically, as well as non-subscriptions. Non-sub is a category combining the aggregators provided by our library, the aggregators provided by our regional consortium, and open access journals. We also break out these non-subcategories individually. And then, finally, for the CR report, we provide PCA coverage and print coverage, if any. As I previously mentioned, the CR report supports collection assessment. So it's valuable to see our PCA coverage as we make decisions about whether to cancel some subscriptions or possibly break packages. PCA coverage can be one important factor as we consider the consequences of a cancellation alongside other factors. The PCA coverage data in the CR report can also be helpful for collection administration, for example, to inform how we cap PCA coverage after a cancellation. I have also included holdings analysis categories in a custom report I provided to a colleague to support instruction. I was asked to compare social services abstracts with applied social sciences index and abstracts. My goal was to keep this report simple so it would be easy to read. In addition to comparing the indexes, I added ILL requests and just a couple of holdings categories. For instruction, in addition to understanding the strengths of each index alone, it's helpful to understand to what extent these indexes overlap and to get a sense of MNSU journal supply for these indexes. Understanding journal supply might save students time as they search for articles to support their studies. MNSU librarians might also refer to journal supply and ILL data to inform journal collection development decisions. I included subscription, PCA, and non-sub coverage because these together provide a good sense of the stability of our journal supply for these indexes. The CPBI has gone through several iterations. The draft version this year includes just 8 pages of data visualizations and lists, but it tends to grow over the course of the year to meet new needs. The CPBI is interactive and available across campus. It's a powerful tool because users can filter by subject or other variables. Formerly, we included many more filters, but we found that these were confusing to users. All the metrics in the CPBI update with the filter context. The various pages of the CPBI fulfill different functions. For example, this page provides an overview of journal supply, but we also provide aggregated quality and usage measures. Users can learn more about the specific journals provided for subjects on the second page of the CPBI. Here we dive into more holdings analysis. Although the primary purposes of the CPBI are to support collection outreach and evaluation, the CPBI can be a source of quick information to support collection assessment too. We break out the PCA coverage specifically in case it's useful for collection assessment. The fourth page of the CPBI allows users to look up individual journals. I personally love this page specifically for collection assessment. I routinely check expensive individual subscriptions on this page to inform collection development discussions. At a glance, I can get a sense of sub and non-sub usage trends, citation trends, and some holdings analysis, including PCA coverage, in case we decide to cancel. The eighth page mirrors the first page, but instead of summarizing journals by quartile within a subject, we summarize journals by decile within the universe of Scimago journals. This can be interesting in case we want to draw attention to how subjects differ. Here you can see the data summarized for history journals, which tend to rank lower than other journals only because historians tend to cite each other less than scholars in other fields. Anyway, I don't have time to explore these reports very deeply, but hopefully I've provided a basic sense of the importance of holdings analysis generally and PCA coverage specifically for the application supported by our library's collection analysis reports. Unfortunately, when we wrote the presentation proposal, I misunderstood how much time we'd have, so I can't really provide a how-to in the couple of minutes I have left. I only have time enough today to provide a very brief overview of the steps we take to provide holdings analysis. In the first place, I pull data from our library management system, ALMA. I've constructed a variety of lists to support a variety of reports. My preference is to get data out of ALMA because it's easier and more efficient to combine data across numerous data sources outside of ALMA. I also prefer other tools for constructing reports, including Python, Tableau, Excel, and Power BI, because each of these tools provide advantages over ALMA analytics. After pulling holdings data from ALMA, I process the data in Excel. I've also processed the data with Python, but I personally prefer Excel for this job. I often prefer semi-automation of tasks to full automation of tasks because I've found I have new insights almost every time I do the same task over again. I can never perform the same job the same way twice. In grade school, this was a challenge, but as an adult, I've found I can often add efficiency or value to processes by letting myself rethink them. Although the holding list has almost 200,000 rows, I can summarize the holdings data and assign provider categories, including PCA, to the holdings list in about an hour. Of course, the reason I can extract PCA coverage dates for holdings analysis is because Annalise has set up the PCA collections. I rely heavily on Excel functions to perform my holdings data processing work, as well as a couple of custom functions I developed using VBA. After processing the data, I create strong match points to other data sources. I've described how to do this work in a recent article and a video presentation. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to match any data source to any other data source, regardless of the size of the data. Finally, I construct the reports. After I've created the match points, report construction can go very quickly. The index comparison report took just a few minutes. The CPBI takes longer because it's considerably deeper, although Power BI itself does most of the heavy lifting. I created the most recent version of the CPBI in about half a day between reference questions during a Saturday shift. Here is a back-end view of the most recent version of the CPBI. I do have documentation for each step, but the documentation is idiosyncratic because I wrote it to serve my own needs, so I wouldn't be able to share it in its current form. I do have plans to rewrite a Python program specifically for the holdings data processing, so that could eventually be used by others. If used with my data combination instructions, I think others could easily construct their own reports using their own preferred tools. Anyway, I appreciate your patience. Please feel free to contact us if you want to talk. I've also provided a link to our library's other research on collections, licensing, and collection analysis. Thank you.